Hey guys, I'm Delete and welcome to my Stellaris Beginner's Guide video. Today, I want to show some of the newer players, features, and tools that'll help set up their empire in the early game. Let's go ahead and get started. And so behind me, I have my Stellaris home screen already pulled up, and we're going to start by selecting a new game. Now, after you do that, one of the first things you're going to have to do is either select a pre-made empire or you can create your own. In today's video, and for new players, I would recommend selecting the United Nations of Earth because they have the Xenophile ethic, and that makes it a little bit easier for you to increase opinions with other AI empires and make friends in the galaxy. And so we're going to select this empire, and next up, you're going to get your game details menu here. And so in this menu, you can do things like change your galaxy size. You can add as many AI empires as the game will allow. You can change how many habitable worlds will be nearby your home world. There's a lot of different things you can do here. If you hover your cursor over each detail, it'll give you some more information about this setting and how you can change it. But for this video, we're going to keep mostly everything on my usual default settings, and we're going to go ahead and click play game. And so you're going to get some cool backgrounds here during your loading screen, and now you're going to get some more information about your empire. And so this is what it's going to look like when your game first starts. It's going to show you some details about your ruler, some more of the ethics and civics that we looked at before, but didn't really go over too much. But if you hover over it, it'll show some more details about the modifiers that it's adding to your empire. You can see things like your species preference for the type of planet they want to live on, and some of their traits as well. And then you're going to get this detailed description about your origin here. And so we're gonna go ahead and click begin, and down here at the bottom and at the top right, I want you to notice that it's saying the game is paused. When you first start your game, I want you to keep the game paused because there are going to be a lot of things that you want to do before you even start your game. And so there's a lot of information to look at here. There's buttons, there's planets, there's numbers, there's things all over the place. And I remember when I first started playing Stellaris, I just dived into this game blind and I had no clue what was going on. And so to make this a little bit easier for you, let's start by breaking down the user interface. And so up here, you have a bunch of different icons. They have these numbers under it, and we'll start there. And so this is my energy credit resource that I have right now. What it says here is that I have 100 energy credits, and I'm bringing in 81 energy credits per month, right? That's going to apply to all of these other resources here. And so these are my minerals. It's saying I have 100 of those. I'm bringing in 27, so on and so forth. But for our first resources, energy credits, you use this mostly for upkeep, all right? You can exploit this by building stations around, like, let's see here. We have this planet Jupiter up here. This planet has 5 energy credits under it. And so that's letting me know that we can exploit 5 energy credits there. And since this number is green, that's already being applied to my energy credits here. And so energy credits, they're used to upkeep your ships, your stations, your star bases, your buildings, and your districts that you'll be building later on in the game. Next up, we have minerals. Minerals, the same way you can exploit them from planets, or the same way you can exploit energy credits, you can do the same thing with minerals and pretty much all of these other resources. If you see the icon under the planet, you can send your construction ship there to exploit that resource. But minerals are usually used to build buildings and stations and things like that. And so your energy credits are used to upkeep the buildings. Your minerals are used to purchase and build those buildings. Next up, you're going to have food. Now, food is another one of these upkeep type of resources. You use these to sustain and grow your population. You want to make sure this number is always going to be white. If it's red, that means you're going to be losing resources, or losing food in this case, and that is going to hurt your pop growth. After that, we have consumer goods. Now, consumer goods is an advanced resource that represents luxuries in your empire. This can impact the amenities and the happiness of your population on your planets. And so you want to make sure, if the species that you have requires this resource, that you keep that high, and you can use this to upgrade and upkeep some of your buildings in the future as well. Next up, you have alloys. Now, alloys, you use these to build ships and star bases. You can exploit these from other planets. You can build stations around them to gather them from worlds, and you can get these from jobs like the other resources on your worlds. Next up, this isn't necessarily like a physical type of resource, but we have influence here. This is this little purple icon, and if you have enough influence, you can do things like making claims on other systems. You can build outposts and expand your borders. And so that's what you'll mostly be using influence for. Next up, you have unity. Now, unity is kind of like your culture. The more unity you have, you can do things with unity like unlocking new traditions. You can recruit leaders using unity, and you can unlock edicts or activate edicts. All right, and so you want to keep an eye on this one as well. You want to make sure that you have a large amount of unity, as well as increasing the amount of unity you are bringing in per month. And that kind of applies to all of these other resources too. But in the early game, unity is going to be important because you'll be juggling it by either unlocking traditions or recruiting leaders. But we'll get to that in a moment as well. Continuing on down, we have your tech score. And so your tech score, it's going to impact how fast you can research other technologies and situations and things like that that require technology. And then after that, you're going to have your special or more advanced resources. These we don't have to really worry about early on in the game, but as you discover more tech, you will be able to exploit these if you find them on other planets. These are a little bit more rare, but these are kind of like these 5 resources here. You know, if you don't have any, it won't hurt you. If you lose resources, if you lose any of these, it will impact your empire. And it's good. These are good to either trade or upkeep other buildings in the future. After that, you have your empire size, which is pretty self-explanatory, but you hover over it, it gives you more details. The more you expand, the more you colonize planets, the more districts you have. This is all going to increase your empire size. Now, if it's at or below 100, you will have no like negative penalties that will happen to your empire. Things like increasing the amount of time it takes you to research tech and things like that. If it's over 100, then you'll start seeing some of those modifiers applied to your tech research. And so it's important to, take your time expanding, let your planets develop. But then again, I mean, it just kind of depends on your goals in the game. If you want to keep your empire size small, just take it slow in the game. Don't expand to too many planets too fast, or else you'll get those negative modifiers early on. After that, you have your envoys, and these are kind of like your representatives for your galaxy. You can use them in ways to either you can use them to like spy on other empires and do things like espionage. You can use them to represent your empire in federations or in the galactic community, and they'll increase your diplomatic weight. And so yeah, those are going to be your envoys. Next up, this is your empire population, and so right now I have 32 pops in my on my planets. And then you have your starbase capacity, and so we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but starbases are what you use to expand your borders and make claims to fulfill your claims on other systems. Right now, we only have one, and that is going to be always located around the sun in the middle of each system. And so if you want to expand your borders later on, you'll have to build a starbase, and that'll usually orbit the home star. And so if I'm going to turn my screen stuff off here, that's going to be your starbase right there, or at least my starbase in this game. And then last but not least, we have our naval capacity. And so this just shows how many ships I can build, and it shows how many I have and how many I can build total. Now, in Stellaris, things like these, these resources, think of it as like rules meant to be bent, not broken. And so I could go over my naval cap and build more ships than I can effectively support, but that'll have negative modifiers like all of these other resources here. And so now we've looked at pretty much everything at this top bar here, right? We're gonna go over here and move our cursor to the left side, and when I hover over these icons over here, it's going to expand it and show more details about what each of these icons are over here. And so we're just gonna start from the top and work our way down. We have our contacts, and so this is going to, if I click on it, open up a list of all known empires and aliens in the galaxy. Now, since I just started this game and the origin that I'm playing with, I don't have any empires that I know yet. But if I did know some other empires, this would show me their name, it would show the opinion of like what they think of me, and so you'll either get a green number that'll appear here or a red number. It'll show the status of this empire, and so if they are a positive towards you or hostile, it'll show their diplomatic status towards you. It'll show how many planets they currently colonized. It'll show their relative power, and so whether they are stronger than you or weaker than you. It'll give you some information about that. It shows whether you or the other empires are in a federation, and you'll get details about whether they're in a war or not. All right. And then after that, you'll have your agreements tab here, but that is going to be some DLC stuff that I won't dive too heavy on. But if you are an overlord, you can adjust the agreements of your vassals and things like that. And so again, that's DLC stuff. I'm gonna try to stray away from as much stuff DLC related in this game right now. I do have all DLC activated, but I will be sure to let you know if some of these features require DLC. And then after that, you have this little icon here. If you want to click on this, you can select an empire and it will show you where they are located at, and you can see where they are on the map. And so that's going to be your contacts tab. Next up, we're going to go back over here on the left side. We have our situation log. And so this is going to show all ongoing events and special projects that are currently happening in your game. Now, it looks like right now, all I have is planet side mining. And yeah, if you want to see any situations you have, you'll find them throughout the game as you explore the galaxy. That's going to be your situations. Anomalies are like situations. They take a little bit longer to research, but you'll find that in this tab. And then the third tab in the situation log tab here is going to be your victory. And so this is going to show your stats. It's going to show the number of pops you have. Everything you do in this game is going to accumulate a score. And then the more empires you find in this game, you'll start to see what your score ranks compared to the other empires. All right. And so that is going to be our situation log tab. Next up, we have our market. Now, earlier we looked at all of these resources that we are bringing in. Let's say you had a lot of energy credits. Like right now, I have 100 energy credits. Let's say I wanted to build a building. Like we said before, minerals, you use those to build buildings. You can go into this tab here, and we could actually sell one resource to accumulate another. And so let's say like I wanted some energy credits. I could sell right now 100 of my minerals, which is all I have right now, and that will give me 70 energy credits. And so this is your market. You can do things like sell your food. Any resource that you have, you can either buy or sell. All right. And let's say you were generating per month. Like right now, the most resources I'm generating out of all of my resources are energy credits. If I wanted to, I could buy energy credits per month, and I would lose one resource if I wanted to. You have to lose a resource in order to buy some. And so just keep that in mind, but you can adjust what you're bringing into your empire, and any resources that you have, you can add to your monthly trade. For now, we're not going to mess with this too much. And then after that, there is a slave market. Now, this is where you can buy pops and add them to a specific planet that you choose. It's not available right now because the galactic community, which is a mechanic that is available a little bit later on in the game, it'll pop up. And if you join the galactic community, the slave market will be available. And I have my cursor hovered over it right now. It's letting me know there's an X mark. The galactic market has not been founded yet, so that feature is not available. All right. And so now that we've looked at our market, next up, let's go to planets and sectors. Now, this is going to show my planet, and your empire is going to be divided between sectors. Now, as you expand your borders, which we'll look at our galaxy map here in a moment. Actually, you know what, let's go ahead and look at that now. So you can either hit the E button, or you can click this galaxy map that is right here, this little button right here. If you click on that, it is going to zoom you out into the galaxy, okay? And so this is one of the galaxies that I'm playing in. And if I look around, I have a few potentially habitable planets nearby. Now, if I go back to my planets and sector here, this is going to show my sector settings. It is going to show my home world and the systems that are nearby and how much I am producing out of that sector. And so the more you expand, the further you get away from your home world, you're going to eventually be able to create another sector. And sectors are important because each sector you have, you can assign a governor to it. And so here it's just showing my governor. It's showing planet Earth. That is my core sector. Right now, I only have one system within it, one planet, and the pops that currently live in this sector. It'll show the output that sector is providing. It'll show the local stockpile if you want to add a stockpile and automatically manage your planets, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later on, but that's another option as well. But yeah, and if you want to create a vassal, you can break off a sector if it has a planet and a governor assigned to that planet, and you can create a vassal. But that's another one of the Overlord DLC features there. But yeah, after that, that's going to cover most of our planet sectors. Now, I'm going to slow down on this left tab. Now that we've zoomed out in this galaxy, I want you guys to just kind of look at what's going on here. There's little bitty buttons, these little bitty lights everywhere. These are all different suns and different systems. Now, everything that's blue right here, this is my border. So right now, I only own one system. That's the Sol system here. And you're seeing, like I said before, we have a couple of orange planets that are around me. Now, one of the first things you're going to want to do in Stellaris is you're going to want to send your science ships out and explore the galaxy. We'll cross that bridge in a moment, but we have these lines here. These lines are leading to other planets. Think of these as like roads to other systems. That is going to be the only way your ships can travel from one system to the next. And so we'll talk more about what we're seeing here in a moment, but next up, let's go to our expansion planner. Now, let's say I were to expand my borders over to this planet or this system here. I would have 2 habitable planets within that system that are now going to be in my border if I were to expand in that direction. The more planets you have, the more planets you will see in this expansion planner here. Now, right now, I see that I have 1 potentially habitable planet. That's going to be planet Mars here. And so I just went back to my home system here. And where are you at, Mars? I do not see Mars anywhere. I think it should be a little bit closer to the sun. Interesting. Here, let's just go to our expansion planner. You can find the planet actually by clicking on this go to button here. Oh, okay, so here it is. It just didn't have the name around it. So here is planet Mars, right? It is currently a barren world, and so there's 0% habitability, meaning that right now, my pops will not be able to colonize that planet, and it shows it here as well. And so back on the expansion planner tab here, it shows your habitability, it shows the type of planet it is and the name. It shows what planetary features will be on that world. And so different planets will have different features. Different features will add different modifiers to your planet. Next up, the planet size. And so one thing that you'll want to look for in the early game is the size of planets and their habitability. If you can find a habitable planet that is like a size 25, that is going to be a jackpot. One of the important features in the game are pops. The more pops you have, the more jobs that can work on your planets, the more resources you can produce. And so the planet size is going to be important, but at the end of the day, if you can find habitable worlds, go for them. Next up, you'll have the distance that planet is from your home system. And so in this case, since we have Mars in our home system right now, it's going to show that this is only 0. If it was 1 system away, it would say 1 there, and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, it would show what districts this planet would have. And so right now, since this planet is not habitable, it's a barren world, there are no generator districts, there's no mineral districts. These districts provide these resources up here. And so this would not be a very good planet for me to try to colonize. Here are some more modifiers. It's letting me know that this planet is a terraforming candidate, all right? And so later on in the game, when I have, it shows here, climate restoration technology, we will be able to change the climate of the world and make it more habitable for my species, all right? And yeah, and it shows the status right here. It's a terraforming candidate. If it was habitable, I would be able to colonize it. But yeah, these are all you're gonna see in the expansion planner tab now. Next up, after expansion planners, we have our policy tab here. And this is something you should also look at in the early game as well. Think of this as the engine of your empire, the way your empire functions and runs. And so you have things like your diplomatic stance. If you, in our case right now, we have expansionists. And so one of our focuses right now is to expand our border. And if you hover over that, it's going to show that it's going to add some modifiers to colonizing planets, or it's going to decrease the cost of me expanding my borders. And so each of these do different things. If I wanted to be something like a belligerent type of empire where I bully weaker empires, you could do that. If you want to be isolated from the other empires and make it more difficult for them to reach out to you. That's just diplomacy alone. There's trade policies and war policies and different things like that. Just, you know, you can skim through these and decide how you want your empire to run. And so that's that there. Next up, you have your edicts. Now, edicts are like modifiers that you can activate, but they cost unity. And so unity is that resource back up here at the top. Now you want to be careful with these because for the most part, they cost a base amount of the specific type of resource. As you venture on later on in the game, more of these edicts will start to fill up the screen here. Some will require different types of resources, but the ones that use unity here, if we hover over this little hammer icon, it'll show your edict fund. And so there will be a certain amount of edicts that you can activate before you go over your edict fund. If you go over your edict fund, you'll begin to dive into your main unity resource up here. And so let's say I wanted to activate fortify the border. I will need a base of 14.5 unity right now. I have not accumulated that much right now. Right now I have 0, but in the next month, I will accumulate 27 unity. Once I do that, I could activate one or the other. In this case, I could activate both of these if I wanted to, because that would increase my current unity upkeep to 28, and that will still be under the 40 edict fund that I have right now. There are technologies that can increase this later on in the game, and you want to keep an eye on these as well throughout the game as well, because over time, as your empire grows, the cost of these edicts will increase, and so just keep that in mind. And so that's going to be our edict tab. Next up, we have our society tab here. And so this has 3 different tabs in this category, starting with traditions. Now, traditions, this will also cost you unity to unlock new traditions. Traditions are like even bigger modifiers. They're like the culture of your empire. Once we unlock one of these, there'll be a number of different traditions you can select. And depending on how you want to play with your empire, you can skim over the different traditions, so on and so forth. Down here in the bottom right corner, you have what are called ascension perks. Now, each tradition is going to have anywhere between like 5 to 6 different traditions in each category. Once you complete a tradition, and you do that again by accumulating as much unity as you can per month, the more unity, in this case, it'll take me 3 months to accumulate 75 unity. All right. Once I do that, I'll unlock a tradition. That will increase over time. That's why you want to keep your unity up as high as you can. But over time, as you continue to unlock and complete traditions, you will, every time you complete a tradition, you will unlock a ascension perk. And think of ascension perks as even stronger modifiers to your empire as a whole. Now, you want to be very selective about the traditions that you start with. If we get to that in this video, I will show you guys some recommendations for traditions in the early game. After that, we're going to go to our next tab here. This is going to be relics. And so when your science ships go out and explore the galaxy, they're going to come across archaeological dig sites. And that is what we looked at in that situation log earlier. They're going to be also known as like anomalies and things like that. When you finish researching those, depending on the anomaly or the dig site, you will find relics. Relics are like activations. You can activate these modifiers to your empire. And so you can find, sometimes you'll find 1 in a game. Sometimes you can find 6. You can find all kinds of different types of relics in your games. But yeah, when you find them, you can activate them and they will do different types of things to your empire. Like I said, we haven't even started our game yet, so we have no relics right now. After that, you're going to have minor artifacts. When you research projects and you finish projects and dig sites, you will find artifacts, and the more you find, the more of these types of situations you can unlock. Later on in the game, depending on the situations you do find and research, it will unlock different types of decisions that you can select here with your minor artifacts. And so some of these, we don't even know what they are just yet, but you want to keep an eye on your artifacts. The more you build up, the more decisions you can unlock here and use. And so right now, like, I only have these 3 decisions that I could even use, but I don't even have any artifacts just yet. And then last but not least, but this does require DLC, you can become the crisis, and that's a whole nother mechanic in itself. And in the early game, you don't even have to worry about that, because you have to unlock, I believe, 3 traditions before you can even become a crisis. But again, that's DLC stuff. We'll talk about that maybe in another video. All right, after society management, we have the ship designer. Now this I'm still kind of working on figuring out, but here you can go in here and decide on what type of ships you want to build. In this case, the only type of ship I have right now is a Corvette. It falls in that Corvette category. Let's say I wanted to change my weapons on my ship. You can just hover over here, click on it, and you'll have a number of different options here. And so this will show the category or the size of the type of weapon you can add here. In this case, this interceptor ship that I have can only it can only build small weapon types here. And so these are all the weapons that I have that fall in the small category. Some fall in medium size categories or even large. There's different types later on, but in the early game, you can change this if you want. You can actually change the type of ship that you want to build. If you click on interceptor, in this case right now, I have 2 different types of ships that I can make. The one that we're currently looking at, or if I wanted to make a picket ship, you can see here the different type of weapon slots and utility slots that they have. And so since I clicked on this, this type of ship will have 3 small weapons. The picket ship will have I believe this is, here, let's just click on it and see what this type of component is. Oh, this is a point defense type of weapon. And so I'm going to keep it on interceptor for now. I'm not going to change too much of this. We'll actually click out of this, but if you just hover over these, it'll show the type of weapon you build. It'll show the stats of that weapon, what it cost. If you go over here on the right side of this menu, it'll show the components that you have. And so you'll have things that show how fast you can travel from one system to the next. It'll show things like your sensor range and how far your systems can see into other systems that you have not explored yet, and a number of different things like that. On the bottom here, you can add things like a reactor booster that increases the amount of power that your ships have, and also all the components and the ship's weapons and things like that you have as a total. You'll see how much it'll cost over here with your production. And so it shows the amount of time it takes to build your type of ships, the upkeep. Like I said before, with our resources at the top, your ships are going to require energy credits, alloys, and later on in the game, as you discover more technology, you can add stronger weapons to your ships. That'll change as well. And so sometimes you'll need things like the special resources that we looked up here as well. And so over time, you'll be able to build more powerful ships, and they'll require different types of resources. If we go below it, again, it'll show your ship stats. And so right now, this type of Corvette, it has 45 power. It shows the hull points. That's like your defensives. And so things like armor, shield, if I had components on it, let's say I added a deflector, it'll increase my shields. You can see there, my shields jumped up to 75. You can add more of the same type of component. And so now I've added 3 shield deflectors. Now I have 225 shields. The same thing applies with armor. You can add armor to your ships, and now it'll change my armor here, okay? Evasion, that's how effective your ships can escape from battle. The speed of your ship. Yeah, these are all your ship stats and stuff like that. And so pretty self-explanatory. Just, you can change this up if you want to. Normally, when I was first playing Stellaris, I didn't look too heavy into this. I just kind of kept everything at a default for now so that I could focus on other things in the game. Okay, so we're gonna exit out of that. And next up, we're gonna go to our fleet manager. And so not to get this confused with ship designer. Ship designer, you design your ship, and the fleet manager, you use this to manage your fleets. And so the more ships you build, the more fleets you will have. In this case right now, we only have 3 ships. This is my only military fleet that I have. That's what it's going to look like when you first start your game. And you can do a number of different things here. You can assign a leader to a fleet. You can give them orders. You can return them to your home system if they're traveling to other systems and you want to bring them back to be repaired. And so here it's going to show the current fleet that I have. It shows the amount of power that they have. It shows the current amount that I have out of the total that I can build. You can also see that up here at your naval capacity. You can reinforce your ships by having your starbase build ships, which we'll go into how you do that later on. You have right now, this is the home base. And so my home system is the Sol system. That's what we've been looking at so far in this game. You can change that if you want. In this case, I'm going to keep it as my home system for now. And yeah, these are just more buttons. If you hover over them, it'll show you what you can do. Things like reinforcing your fleets. If your fleets have taken battle battle damage, you can repair that fleet. It'll send them back to the shipyard that is on your starbase. You can upgrade your fleet, and so if you discover some technology later on in the game, like a stronger version of a laser or a missile, or a way to make your ships travel to a system faster, you can send that fleet back to your shipyard on your starbase and upgrade them. And if you want to just disband the fleet, there is that option as well. Probably don't do that in the early game. Your fleets throughout the game, you're going to want to make sure that you are continually upgrading, building more ships, and making sure that your fleet power is strong, because you'll want to defend yourself against alien monsters and potentially hostile empires that you'll find out in the game. And again, yeah, you can, same thing here, just disband them. You can get some details on them here, and this is kind of like a smaller menu of the ship designer. If you want to directly see what ships have, like their modifiers and things like that, you can click on the magnifying glass. It's the ship detail button, and you can see all this here. And if you want to add a ship design to your fleet, you can, let's say you want to have 2 different types of corvettes. In this case, that's the only type of ship we have. You can select this here. If you go to your ship designer and you design a different type of ship, here it'll show that type of ship you have, and you can choose that design on it. And so it'll give you some more information about how much it costs to build it and how long it takes and things like that. All right, and so that's our fleet manager tab here. I'm going to close this out, and we're going to move on to the next, technology. Now, this is this here. So these 3 buttons here, that is one way you can access your technology, or you can hover over here and pull it up in this screen. So you know where that's at here. Technology is here. If I click on it, it brings this up. Throughout the game, you will see these icons pop up. It's the same thing. As your tech increases, this will pop up more frequently. And so I'm just going to click on one of those icons. Each of them pull this up. You're going to have 3 scientists. All right. And so this is your technology tab. We'll just start from the top down below. This is your ruler, or your scientist in this case. If you hover over them, it'll show some details about them. Here is their name. And so each scientist is going to have a trait. All right. And for your technology, you want to make sure that these match. Now, some traits, they can be applied universally to any technology that you want to research. All right. In this case, this scientist I have is adaptable. And so that is going to be a more universal trait that can work on any of these technologies, right? Now, let's say that like this scientist is currently researching any technology that's in the field of physics, right? If I wanted to recruit a scientist, which we'll talk about in another tab down here later on, you'll want to recruit a scientist that has a expertise in the physics field, all right? Some can have expertise in like computing. It won't say physics, but it'll be a blue icon here, and we'll look at it a little bit later on when we recruit scientists. You want to make sure that matches with the field type. So you don't want a scientist that has a physics expertise researching in a society tab, right? So like this scientist right here, for example, she has a expertise in statecraft. It's going to be a green icon. Same thing for this scientist here. She has a expertise in industry. That's going to be an engineering trait. That's going to be a society trait for society, the expertise in statecraft. You want to apply those to the specific technology that they were researching, so that if we scroll down here to the right side more, it'll show their research progress. And so, for instance, this scientist is going to have a bonus in research progress per month, and you want this to be as high as possible. You want to research technology as fast as possible, because there's a chance that you could be technologically more advanced than another empire. You'll have better technology. You could have better ships. You could produce more resources. All those things you do by researching more tech. And so let's go ahead and select a technology here. I'm gonna select research button here, and it'll show me 3 options that I have here. Now, there is no right or wrong way to select the technology you want. Just depending on the empire you're playing with and the things that you want to research, you have choices here. And so in this case, I'm going to select for my physics technology, we're gonna go ahead and just start with zero G laboratories. Now, in the early game, for me, I like to research technologies that increase research station output. And so as you explore other empires, you will find planets that have technology deposits on them, and you can build research stations around those to add more tech to your empire, and you use that tech again to increase your research speed. And so anything that I could use to increase research speed, I usually go for. That's what the research stations here. I won't go too heavy into technology stuff, but this looks just like the zero G laboratories option. This will increase physics research from your researchers. And so when we look at our planets, you'll see that there are research type buildings that you can build on your planets to increase your researcher output. You know, we'll go ahead and select this one now. And I'll do the same with all these other ones. You can select anything that you want. For me, I like to select mostly tech researching modifiers, technology. And for engineering, you know, you have things like this here that will increase the amount of like a specific resource that you output or a type of ship component. Engineering, I think, is one of the more important technologies. Don't want to take away from the other two categories, but you want to make sure that you are definitely getting the bang for your buck in the engineering category. All right, so now that we've selected these, you can see here that the research progress for some of these are a little bit different. In this case here, like I was saying before, this scientist has a expertise in industry, and that's going to increase any industry technology that I research by 15%. And so that's why my research progress is now at 17% in this category, is because the technology that I'm researching is a industry-based technology. And so that is how you can get more bang for your buck. You want to match these traits with the technology you're researching. Now that we've selected the technology we're researching, down here on the bottom, it's going to say 23 months remaining. And so if I were to start my game now, in 23 months, I will research this technology. Once I research that technology, there are certain technologies that will advance your tech and allow you to research other techs later on. And so the more tech you research, the different types of techs you will find in the game. And so that's just kind of like my brand overlook at technology. And if you want to see what technologies you've already researched, here in the early game, it'll show your starting tech. And so I click this research button up here at the very top. It'll open up 3 tabs here, and it'll show the technology you already have or have researched in these three tabs here. And so if you want to look at those, you are more than welcome to. It'll show you what you have and what types of ships, what modifiers and things like that you already have applied to your empire. So now that we've looked at tech, next up, let's go with factions. Now, later on in the game, and depending on the type of species you are playing with, factions will start to form. They can be a good thing or they can be a bad thing. It just depends on the issues and things like that you're addressing. And so right now, we don't have any factions yet, but they will start to form later on in the game. It'll show the type of faction that you have. It'll show their name. It'll show whether they approve of how you're playing with the empire that you have. It'll show the size. And so normally when, like in this case, we are playing with the United Nations of Earth, factions are going to form. You're going to want to find the faction that best represents how you want to play the game. They will have issues, and that'll show like, hey, if you have a certain type of faction that has issues that you feel like is a little bit easier for you to address and accommodate, that will increase the support. Okay. And so if a faction does not have a high support, but they have a really big size faction, that could be a problem for you. You want to support the biggest faction that represents your empire, and so that's what this is going to be for. Now, the bigger the faction and the more support they have, if you're supporting them, and if they like how you're running the empire, they will produce unity. Okay, and so you can use these factions and you can, you know, play on their side to increase your unity output. So that's another way that you can increase unity there. After that, here you can it'll show their issues. If you select them, it'll show their icon and all that stuff in this menu. You can also manage the faction, and I might save this for a little bit later on in the video or for another video, but you can do things like supporting a faction, you can suppress a faction, and it will increase the size and approval of those as well. And so that's our faction tree here. Next up, let's look at the claims. And so this is going to zoom me back up out of the galaxy here. And this is where that influence that we talked about earlier comes into play. If another empire, let's say like another empire claims all of these systems here, including this this system in particular, if I wanted to make a claim on that system, I would go to this tab here, or I could click on the system and make a claim on it. There's another way to do it, but we'll do it from this menu here. We have our claims pulled up. I could spend my influence to make a claim on that system if it's not in my borders. Now, influence, you do not get a lot of it, at least early in the game. Like right now, we're only bringing in 3 per month. And when you spend your influence, it's going to be very expensive in that category. And so you should be very careful how you're spending your influence early game, because you'll be using it to expand your borders. And if you make claims, it will cost, all right? But you can do things with, going back to the influence resource, if you want to increase your influence, you can do things like building more ships. That will increase your power projection. If you declare another empire a rival, that will increase your influence as well, depending on the type of empire you are playing with. So now that we've looked at claims, next up, let's look at the species tab here. And so over time, you may bring in some more species, different type of alien species to your planet. This is where you will find them at. Right now, this is the only species I have, a humanoid species. It'll show how many we have. It'll show their trait points. And so when the game first started off, we saw some traits, which are right here as well. As you discover more technology, you will be able to add more traits to your species. You can change them, but we don't have the technology for that just yet. And so we won't worry about that right now at this point in the game. Another thing you can do in this species tab is you can set the right to your species. And so if we click on set rights here, it's going to pull up all of these different options that we have here. You can change their citizenship. And so if you want them to be undesirable and purge a type of species, you can do that. If you want to enslave a species or just make them sort of like a resident type of species, there are those options. Each of them have different types of modifiers. And so if you hover over them, it'll show what those rights do for your species. You can decide if a species will be in your military, if they can only be soldiers, if they can be generals or admirals or leaders in your empire. You can do that as well. And so look at this if you want to decide the different types of rights you want to give to your species. And then up here on this side, it'll show the species name, it'll show their type, it'll show how many there are, their traits, and their rights. And so that's an easier way to look at it through this screen here. And that is going to be our species. Next up, and lastly, on the left side of this user interface, we have our leaders. And so we've already looked at our governors before. We saw that through sectors, you can have governors applied to your planets. It'll show their traits. It'll show the name of them and the action that they are currently doing. And so in this case, my governor is currently governing the Earth sector, my home world. It'll show the age and the upkeep. And so this is why Unity is going to be very important in the game. You can use Unity to unlock traditions. You can use Unity in this case to buy and upkeep your rulers. And so there are going to be times where a tradition will pop up. Your tradition icon will pop up, and you'll click on it, and it's like, hey, you can either unlock this tradition, or in the early game, it's important to use your Unity to recruit more scientists, because the more scientists you have, the more ships you can send out to expand and survey other systems. Now, these are all the scientists I have right now, and these are going to be one of the more important type of rulers, or not rulers, but leaders that you'll have in the early game, because you'll be needing them to command science ships to explore. Right now, the only scientist I have that is exploring the galaxy, or not really exploring the galaxy, I haven't assigned them to explore the galaxy yet, is going to be Myra down here. And so right now she's busy. Oh, no, not Myra. Oh, no, it's going to be Michael up here. So Michael is currently commanding the UNS Einstein ship, all right? This will show the other scientists are researching whatever category of technology they're researching. But that's how you can tell what your scientists are doing. Early in the game, you may or may not need an admiral or general, at least with the empire we're playing with right now. We won't need these just yet, but let's say I wanted to recruit a leader in any of these categories. You can select recruit here, and in this case, I could recruit 3 different types of scientists. If I click on governor, it'll give me governor options, so on and so forth. But here, I'm going to show you why it's important to have Unity in the early game and deciding on what you want to spend it on. Now, if I wanted to recruit one of these scientists here, it'll show me their name again. It'll show me the age of the scientist, which if you have organic species, the age matters. Scientists will die of old age. Situations can kill scientists. There's a number of different things that can happen to your scientists that put them in danger. And that's why Unity is important to recruit these guys again, because if a scientist dies, especially one that is researching one of your main 3 technologies, it is going to be expensive to buy them and bring them back or bring in a new scientist. So the traits are going to be important as well. And like I was saying with science before, if you have a category, let's say one of my physics scientists dies, this would be a good scientist to recruit to fill in that scientist, their spot. He has an expertise in field manipulation. Same thing with society or engineering. In this case, society. If my society technology scientist died, these 2 would be a good option for them. Now, over time, scientists will switch up. There will be a different category or a different option of scientists to recruit. And so if there is a scientist with a trait that you like, that you want to recruit, I would recommend recruiting them sooner than later, because a few months will go by and you'll come back to recruiting a leader here, and there will be 3 different leaders in these categories here. And so right now I don't have enough Unity. I hover over this recruit button here and it tells me you do not have enough Unity to recruit a scientist just yet, but as you build Unity, you will be able to later on. All right, guys, and so now that we've looked at these 2 main user interface buttons here, one thing that I looked at that we didn't look at earlier is our little flag icon here. This is just going to give you some information about your government as a whole. And so again, not to get your ruler mixed up with your governor, this is the ruler of your entire empire. And so in this case, our ruler is currently level 2 out of 5. As the game goes on, they will accumulate more XP that levels them up. They have traits as well. And so depending on the type of government you are playing with, you will have elections, and you can either select or vote on the ruler you want. And yeah, you can look at their traits here and how they provide the modifiers that they provide to your empire. Now, over time, these rulers, these leaders that you have, they can develop some bad traits as well. And so those traits would appear red. Keep an eye on those, because if you want to have a effective government, you want to have efficient leaders, you can always replace those later on. And so yeah, here in this government tab, it's going to show the name of your empire, the ruler you have, your governing ethics. This is what you can customize before you start the game. You can create an empire and determine what kind of ethics you have. These are just bigger modifiers to how you can play your empire and add on to that. And so you kind of want to play into these modifiers. All right. And so right now we have the fanatic, egalitarian, and xenophile ethics. Like I was saying before, this increases opinions for other empires. The other ethic, the egalitarian here, it will increase faction unity gain. And so, you know, that would mean that I would like to definitely spend some time looking at my factions and making sure I'm playing into that the correct way. You have civics, which are kind of like modifiers as well. These can be changed in the game later on if you want to. There are technologies that will let you add a extra civic as well. But again, this is kind of like the under the hood of your empire. And with technology later on, you can reform your government and add, these are all the different types of civics that you can add to your empire. And so you can even do things like changing the type of authority that you have. For us right now, we are a democratic government, and you can't really change it in the early game, but that's an option later on. This button right here, this is your diplomatic weight. And so when you join, or if you do decide to join the galactic community, this is going to be something you'll want to keep an eye on, because the higher your diplomatic weight, the more you can influence resolutions and things that pass later on in the game. Right now, we don't have any modifiers or relations with other empires in the game yet, and so these will be empty. But as you research projects and things, sometimes you'll get like an empire-wide modifier, and that's where you can find this here. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Oh yeah, and if you hover over this is your origin that you started with. And so with us starting with the prosperous unification origin, it'll show the effects if you hover over it. It starts my game with an additional 4 pops and additional 2 districts on my planets. So that's the government tab of this button up here. We're gonna go to our demographics next, and this is going to show a pie chart of my species that I'm playing with. Again, it shows their traits, shows how many worlds they're spread across. And if you want to have more pops in your empire later on in the game, this pie chart will look a little bit more diverse. It'll also show some of the effects that are being applied to your pops. Things like your happiness. Sometimes your happiness can increase or decrease. There are situations that modify those in different ways. And yeah, I mean, these are just pretty much self-explanatory. It shows what they do. You know, your pop growth speed could be modified in a positive or negative way, things like that. And so just hover over those and it'll show what they do. And then last but not least, you have your advisor voice. And so this is not a really mechanic changing thing in the game, but
this channel is now under military control.
You can go through here.
Transmitted here and report any insurgent activity to the nearest occupation officer.
This will show what your advisor voice sounds like. And so each of these sound different. If you want to click through these and just, you know, apply a voice that you want to hear, that's always going to be a option, or you can just base it on the government type that you're playing with. All right, and so now that we looked at our government button here, down here on the bottom, this is just going to show your planet. And if you click on it, I actually just realized this now. I'm learning something new myself here. You click on this, it'll pull up the planets that you have. This other button shows your fleet. This will show your science ship. And then this last button here with the wrench and screwdriver will show your construction ship. And so now let's go to our outliner. So this is above my noggin here. This is going to show everything that you can kind of click on that is in your government, that is accessible to you. We'll start with our sectors here. And so in my sector, I have only planet Earth. I'm going to click on it. It's going to pull up my planet Earth tab. This is going to show me all the information about my planet. Now, if I double click on here, I'm gonna click X out of this. If I double click on Earth, it'll show me where it's at in the galaxy. And so you can see it's kind of pinging there a little bit. If I right click on it, it'll show me where the planet is in the background, okay? So planet Earth here, here's the details about it. This is my empire's capital. If you hover over it, it shows the modifiers that come with this planet being my empire's capital. It'll show the type of planet it is. And so in this case, Earth is a continental world. For my species, my human species, it is going to have a 100% habitability. Now, this you want to have as high as possible for any species that you play with in this game. The higher the habitability, the happier your pops will be on this planet. The lower it is, it will add some upkeep to your species. And then if you hover over the planet, more details about that. And then your empire size, like we talked about before, this empire size will determine how many districts you have. And I think that's it. I don't know if it impacts your, yeah, it doesn't impact how many buildings you can have, but the higher your planet size is, the more of these districts you can have. And so after that, I'm gonna go down here. It shows my governor, it shows their trait, what level they are. And then you'll have these little circular icons here. This just shows the current modifier that is being applied to this planet and the pops living on this world. And so because of my origin, the prosperous unification, I have a few modifiers that will be applied to this planet. Now I'm going to go down here next to our districts. Now districts will provide housing and jobs to your planets at the cost of minerals and the upkeep of energy credits. And so I'm currently hovered over city districts. Now, if I build a city district, this is going to provide 5 housing, right? And that icon is going to be visible over here. And so right now on my planet Earth, I have 8 available housing. Now, housing is going to represent the needs of my population. As my pops grow, housing is going to go down. If I build a city district, it's going to add 5 housing to that. And so you want to keep this right around like, you know, right around like maybe 5 to 10 housing per planet. And as your pops grow, you want to build more of those city districts. But if your housing goes down, you're going to start having not unemployed, but homeless pops. And that's going to impact your stability on your planet. And so stability is going to be this icon up here. The higher the stability, the better. It'll improve your pops approval rating of how you're running the planet. It'll increase your trade value, which is going to be this icon right here. Now, trade value can be adjusted in the policy tab that we talked about earlier. In this case, trade value for my empire is being converted into energy credits. And so the higher my trade value, in this case, I have 42 trade value on my planet. That is being converted into energy credits, okay? All right, and so next up, we looked at our city districts first. Next is going to be your industrial districts. Now, industrial districts are going to add either artisans or metallurgist jobs to my planets, right? These will cost minerals like all of the other districts, but those jobs, we'll look at what those do a little bit later on. But mostly they're used to convert minerals into either consumer goods or alloys, right? So that's going to be what this district is mostly used for if you want to build those. If you want to increase your energy credits, the generator district is going to be the way to go. If you build one generator district, it's going to add energy credits. It's going to add technician jobs, and technicians produce energy credits. And so that's what you'll be using these generator districts for. Next up are mining districts. Self-explanatory. Mining districts produce minerals. They produce 2 housing and 2 miner jobs. All right, and so if you want more minerals on your in your economy, build more mining districts. And then last but not least, you have your agricultural districts. Now these provide food. Want to make sure you at least have some sort of food input per month. This is how you would do it. Build these agricultural districts. They'll provide 2 farming jobs and food. Now all of these districts do provide housing, but the city districts provide more. Okay, and so city districts provide 5, like we said before. All of these other categories only provide 2 housing. And so you may not need to build as many city districts right off the back because some of these other districts will provide those. But to go back to city districts, there was something I forgot to mention. If you do build city districts, they will unlock a building slot down here. And now that we're on this category, buildings are going to be more specific types of buildings are more like specific things that you build on your planet to provide a more specific resource that you want. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to build buildings that complement your districts. So let's say that I only want to build on planet Earth. Let's say I want to get rid of these other districts and only build agricultural districts, right? I will want to build a specific type of building that produces food, okay? And so let's just back up a little bit. Right now, when you start your game, you'll already have a couple of buildings already being applied to your planet. You'll have what is kind of like a planet building. Think of, like, in US terms, a White House. That's going to be like your planetary administration building. This building in particular will provide housing, and over time, as you grow your pops on this world, you will be able to upgrade buildings, and that applies to a lot of these other things as well. If you have things like technologies you'll be able to research later on, those will let you upgrade your buildings. And so if you just hover over the buildings, it'll show you how much it costs to build them, the upkeep, what the jobs do from those buildings. Same thing applies to the districts as well. And it'll show how much that job will produce. Okay. And so let's say I wanted to add a building to my world. If there is a open building slot, which will be these these open building slots with the little check or the plus sign on them, you just click on it and you'll see all these different types of buildings you can build. Each of these will provide you with a resource. And so let's say I hover over this administrative offices. The details it's showing me, again, like we were saying before, it shows all that. It shows what it produces. And if you have a specific type of resource you need, you'll want to build the type of building that produces that resource there. And so that's how that whole thing works there. These little icons up here at the top, if you want to look for a specific type of building, let's say I have something like crime on my building. I can click on my government button here, which is like a badge, and it'll show the building type that I would want to build to decrease crime. Or something like mining or manufacturing. I could build, if I wanted to build armies, I could build, I can click on this fortress or this army button here. And so all this does, it makes it a little bit easier to find the specific type of building that you want to build. Just kind of look through these, especially when you're playing this game for the first time. You may not even know what kind of buildings you want to build. Just kind of look through these and you can see what each category those fall into. And so I'm going to close out that was our building slot button there. Now back over here in this middle column here, this is going to show if I could terraform a planet. I don't have the technology for it right now. This is showing what technologies I need to terraform worlds. But if I'm living on a planet that has low habitability, again, this is where you would go to terraform this world. For my districts, so you can see that some of these districts are filled in. In this case, on this planet right now, I only have 2 districts out of 4 total that I can build. up here above the districts, it'll show how many you have available to build, and the orange is going to show you the features. And so this means that I have districts that I can build on my planet. I just can't do it until I clear out a planetary feature here. And so those little orange boxes here, that's going to be these three right here. These are kind of like hazardous features, or sometimes it'll be like an active volcano. Those are going to be districts that you are not able to exploit resources from yet. If you want to clear out those blockers, sometimes you'll need technology to do so, and you'll need energy credits. Now, these will require 1 pop to clear, right? And so one of those pops will be working to clear out a planetary feature. It'll cost you energy credits. Sometimes it might cost you a different type of resource. And it shows that it will take me 121 in-game days to complete. And so let's say I filled up all of my districts. I have no more districts I can build, but I have some tiles that are blocked. If I clear out these, they will open up more options for me to build districts, all right? And so if you scroll down here below, these are some of the districts I already have on my planet that are not negative. Sometimes they can be negative, sometimes they are positive. In this case, like I have a Saharan integrated project. This is a planetary feature on planet Earth. This adds four agricultural districts to my planet. And so that's why I have this many districts right now. And yeah, if you clear these out, they add more districts. And so that's going to cover the features. And this here is just another indicator that, hey, you have 3 blockers on the planet. That's going to represent these 3 orange boxes again. And if I have a rare planetary feature, that's going to be what this icon is right now. But we don't have that on our planet right now. And then below that, you're going to have the resources that you are producing from this planet specifically. And so this is just going to show that these resources are all being produced on this world from either your jobs, your districts, or features. And if you're building a number of specific type of jobs, there is a chance that your planet will fall into a deficit. Now, these do not represent these numbers up here, but they do contribute to them though. And so just because you have 40 energy credits, it doesn't mean you're going to have 40 here. It just shows that there's 40, you're producing 40 energy credits that are being applied to your energy credits up here. Same thing applies to all of the other resources. All right. Now, we're gonna go back over here and get a little bit more in detail with this. Now, we know this is our stability. This is the current amount of pops that are currently living on my planet. You have this button here, which are decisions. Now, if I click on this, these will impact my planet directly. And so let's say that, I wanna stop building robots if I'm able to build robots on my planet. There's that decision there. If I want to increase stability, I have the option of declaring martial law. But when you make these decisions, keep in mind, while they may have an immediate impact to something on your planet, they will have a counter reaction as well. And so if I wanted to declare martial law on my planet, it may increase stability, but it will decrease pop growth, pop assembly speed. Other pops will not want to immigrate to my world, and it will decrease resources from jobs. And so just look at what you want to decide for your planets and decide if it's worth it to select it. And so yeah, if you scroll through these, there are lots of different decisions that you can make on your worlds. Now, resettling something that we'll save for maybe another video, but just to kind of sum it up, if you have multiple planets and let's say this planet has unemployment on it, you can resettle a pop to another planet. That way they can find a job on that world. Or if there's, let's say, a pop that's living on your planet that does not find the planet to be very habitable, you can resettle them too. It will cost you some resources, and so just keep that in mind when you do that and spend those wisely. Now down here, we looked at some of these icons, but let's go into more detail about these. Now, these are just icons about what's happening on your planet. In this case, like right here, this first icon is going to be crime. And so crime is going to show you the overall level of criminal activity on your planets. A high level of crime is going to have negative events that happen. You can have things like crime lords pop up on your planet. There'll be like crime jobs on your planet if you leave this unchecked. Now, 10% is not the end of the world, but there are buildings that you can build like we looked at before that can decrease the crime on your planet. It can also reduce pop happiness, and yeah, it's going to be important to build buildings to keep that as low as possible. Housing, we talked about that with the city districts earlier, but this represents the housing for your population. It will increase your stability. The higher your, not the higher, but if you keep this above 0, your stability will be good. If it goes below 0, it will begin to impact your stability. Okay. Next up, we have amenities. Now, amenities are how your pops are happy on a day-to-day basis. Again, you can build buildings to increase this if you want. But yeah, if you hover over this, it shows how the amenities are being provided. And it shows that, like in this case, I'm increasing amenities through my empire capital, buildings, jobs, and my origin and things like that. And so, yeah, that's going to be your happiness of your pops. Here, now this is going to be important. These are the available jobs that you have on your planet. Simple as that. The more districts and the buildings that you build on your planet will impact this number. You want this to be, honestly, sometimes I like to just build as many buildings as I can early on so that I can get my pops to work very quickly. But having a number of available jobs, a high number of available jobs, it can be a good and a bad thing. Having a lot of available jobs on your planet means that pops can move to your world later on and fill in those jobs. Pops can grow on your planet and eventually start to fill up these jobs. But you want to keep this at a pretty decent number here. I usually have to keep it anywhere between 5 to 10, depending on how fast my pops grow. Sometimes if your pops grow really fast, you may want to add more jobs ahead of time. And so that's that there. And then if this were to drop to 0, yet my pops continually grow, this right here is my current employment icon, the briefcase with the little band circle around it. If that goes up, that will again decrease stability. It will impact your workers on your planets, and we're going to talk about that in one moment here. But yeah, if you don't have pops working on your planet, they will become unemployed. And there's 3 categories that your workers are going to be in. We'll talk about that in just a moment, and I'll show you how that unemployment can impact them. After that, we'll go down here below all the icons, and we have Earth. This is the current core sector. Let's say that I expand my borders here and we zoom out. Let's say I find a planet that's like all the way out here. If I were to click on this here, actually this will pull me to the planet and sectors tab. But if I have another planet that's colonized further away, right now this is not available, but I could create another sector and hire another governor to manage the other planets. And so that's always an option there. If we go down here below, this is something that I would not recommend messing with. Or at least you couldn't even do it in the beginning anyway, because you can't necessarily designate a planet. But if you want to, build a specific type of districts or buildings on a planet, if you auto designate that planet, it will increase the output of whatever you designate it to. It'll increase the build speed of specific type of districts, and you can do things kind of like building planets specifically designated to a specific type of resource that you want to build. And so there's that option as well. And then you can upgrade the planet. That's what this upgrade ascension tier here. And all that does is increase the designation that you have set for that planet. And so if you hover over it, more details there. Now, planet automation, if you're a beginner player, do not select this, okay? I'm just gonna say that now. Experiment with planet, I want you to manage your planets early on before you select this, because all this does is automatically manage your worlds here. And for me in particular, I feel like just trying to understand what each building does is more important in the early game than trying to automate your worlds here. And so if you want to, if you absolutely feel like you want to do this, then if that's an option, you can decide what your planet's automation settings will be. And these are all the things you can click on. And so if you want to automatically upgrade your buildings, you can do that there. If not, you can just click on it there, and just, that applies to all these other options as well. All right, so now that we're still on this outliner sector here with the Earth button, we're gonna go to the population tab next. This is still in the Earth tab. This is going to show what jobs and what categories my population falls into. And so every one of your pops, they're either going to fall into the ruler category, the specialist category, or the worker category. And so think of your rulers as like politicians. Right now, I have 2 of my pops out of the 32 living on this planet working as politicians. If you hover over these icons, they're going to show you what jobs the pops are being worked. And so next up, you have your specialists. Think of these guys as like scientists or police officers, the factory workers of a specific type. They're going to fall into this category here. And then your workers, think of these as like general workers. And so this is going to be the majority of where your pops are going to be working at. In this case, I have like clerks or technicians or miners or farmers. Those are all going to fall into those categories. Now, I was mentioning earlier about unemployment. Let's say we have a pop that falls into the ruler category, right? Let's say that a new pop that is growing, it forms on my planet, and now I don't have enough politician jobs available for them. They're going to fall into that unemployment category. And over time, the longer they remain unemployed, the higher that their chances are that they are going to drop a category of what they are. And so let's say that we have a ruler that has been unemployed for like a year. Depending on how long it takes for them to downgrade into another job category, over time, your politician is going to fall into the specialist category. Same thing applies to specialists. If they fall into worker categories, if they remain unemployed for a long period of time. Now, workers, they just remain unemployed for the time being. Another thing too is that sometimes your pops will automatically resettle to other planets if they can find a job on that world faster than they can on this planet. But yeah, back over here to the jobs. So you can actually click on the rulers here. And in this case, it'll show the 2 pops that I currently have working that job there. All right. Same thing applies to specialists and the worker category. You can see what pops are working what jobs. And in this case, like right now, I don't have any of my pops working as a enforcer on my planet. But to go even further on what these do, if you want to hover over what jobs do what, in this case, like researchers, I have my cursor hovered over the researcher icon. It's showing me that researchers produce technology, but they have an upkeep of food and consumer goods. And so this always goes back to your resources and making sure that you are producing resources to upkeep these workers, their jobs. And that's why it's important to make sure that you're watching what types of buildings you build, because over time, let's say I build like 5 research labs. That'll be a bunch of researcher jobs that I have to fill now. And when those do fill, you want to keep an eye on that upkeep, because like right now I have 2 scientists, right? 2 researchers. That's going to be 2 food that's being consumed right now. And so if you go overboard and build a bunch of a specific type of ship, make sure that you have the resources to upkeep those different types of jobs. And over time, different jobs have different modifiers. In this case right here, enforcers decrease crime. They have, actually doesn't show their upkeep right now. Actually, yeah, all your pops are going to have similar upkeeps. But as you find other pops, if we go back here, so I can see that I have mostly, with the species I'm playing with right now, they're all going to be humans. But let's say we get like a robot species. You can modify their traits, or they might have already different type of traits that would make them a better fit for a specific type of job. And so if you really want to get heavy on the micromanaging stuff, we'll talk about that maybe in another video. But yeah, these are just some general things you'll want to look at when it comes to your jobs. All right. And so also in the population tab here, over here on the right side, you're going to have your demographics. And so this is going to show your approval rating and how happy your pops are. Want to keep that high. And then it's going to show the current pop that is growing on your planet. In this case right now, I have a human that is growing on my planet. And so it shows the growth progress. It shows when I will have another pop. And so here it says growth of a new pop will complete in 30 months. Okay. And so if I let time go by in 30 months in game, this 32 will turn into 33 once this pop grows. Now, just reading from what it says here, base growth is increased because there is a balance between population and planet capacity. And so that's going to play back into housing, and you can see your planet capacity here is at 48. And so yeah, you want to build housing, you want to keep an eye on that, make sure that if there's homelessness, that can impact your pop's growth. If you don't have food, that will impact your planets, your pops growing on that world. Now this category here, it says assembling, but there's nothing happening. I'm not building any robots, but if you have the technology and the building, you have to build a specific type of building to build robots. You could build robots. Now, this is a fun little tip for anybody that's playing this that may not know about this, but if you are building robots and you have a organic species, you can grow organic species and build robots at the same time. And so with my empire being more diplomatic heavy and more opening to other species, this would be a good kind of empire to dive into some robot technology, research robot technology, unlock the type of buildings that you will need to build these, and you can go from there. Now, let's say that you decide later on that you want to go crazy and invade a planet. If you invade a world and you want to purge the species, that is where this button here, this is not really a button, it's just an icon, the pops will begin to decline on that world, okay? And so if you invade a world and you're starting to just destroy the pops on that planet, that will start to decline. I believe if your planet has been invaded as well and there are armies invading your world and they're purging your species, you will begin to decline pops on that planet. You never want that, not for your species, okay? And then we had another pie chart just showing what pops are currently living on your planet. Next up, we have armies. Now, you can recruit armies, but armies will cost you minerals. And you want to recruit them to either invade planets. You can land armies on other planets, but you want to keep an eye on what defensive armies they have. And so there's two different types of, not really two, there's a lot of different types of armies, but to kind of generally put them together, you have attack and defensive armies. You use the attack armies to, again, go invade other planets, and then you'll want to keep armies on some of your planets, especially if they're at risk of being invaded, to defend from hostile invaders. And so it is important to keep in mind that you can weaken another planet's army by bombarding their worlds with your ships. And so, if you want to attack another empire, but they have a lot, if you want to invade another planet and they have a lot of armies on that planet, you can bombard them and destroy their armies and weaken them and then invade the planets. And so this is where you're going to see a lot of that. And you can recruit them here. Again, they require minerals. As you accumulate more armies, they will appear in this box here. And back with that devastation thing. So when I was mentioning bombarding planets, the more you bombard a planet, the higher the devastation will go to. And these are the 4 stages of devastation. You'll see a little percentage button appear by the planet as well. It'll show how much bombardment damage has been done to the planet. But the more you devastate a planet, you'll destroy buildings, you'll decrease pop happiness. Pretty much this just completely wrecks planets and their stability. And so that is an option as well. And you have the ability to recruit a leader to your armies. This is just another way, but we don't have any armies right now, so we are not able to do that. All right, and so that covers the army tab here. And then the last one, this is going to be holdings. This is a DLC feature with the Overlord DLC. I'm not going to cover this too much, but if you have vassals, you can build specific type of buildings. If you have a megacorp, which is another DLC, you can add branch offices to specific type of planets, and that will that's some DLC stuff. So I won't go too heavy on that. And that's going to cover the first the planet here and the outliner tab. And you can look at other planets through here as well. As you colonize more planets or invade other planets and take them for yourself, you'll have more planets appear here. But that's going to be your first little button there. Now your shipyard, this is going to be your star base that we mentioned that it's orbiting your home, your sun, or the sun in the center of your sun, or your empire. Or just your shipyard's going to be a building, more specifically, that is on your station. And so you'll have a station, but not all of the stations will have shipyards. If they do, they'll appear in this category. And when you click on it, it's going to give me some more information about the station that I have. You can look at the weapons and the components that are on that star base. You can choose to downgrade it. Let's say if we go up here, if your naval cap, like right now, we can only provide or effectively have 3 star bases. If I had 4 and I wanted to decrease that, I could downgrade my station here all the way to like a regular station, and it won't have any of these modules. But if you want to upgrade it, you will need technology. It will cost Unity, but as you upgrade your bases, it'll make them stronger. It'll open up more module slots, and these module slots, think of them as like buildings on your planet. You can build these to do different types of things on your starbase, and you can add buildings, same thing. They will add different types of modifiers to your empire and your star bases. And so right now, when you start the game, you'll already have one starbase already at, I think, a starport. It'll have a shipyard and a trade hub. And if you hover over these, it'll show how they impact your starbase and your empire. Same thing down here. You'll start with a crew quarters, and that is used to decrease ship upkeep when they're docked in the station. And so that's going to cover most of this for now. And again, upgrade these, open up more modules and building slots, build those, increase your star bases. Next up, we have the defensive tab. And so as you build these star bases, you want to make sure their defenses are high as well. It's not necessarily a high priority in the early game. It just depends on your situation you're playing with. It can be, it can not be, it just depends. But you can build what are called defensive platforms. Now, these are like platforms near your starbase that will increase their power. And so let's say that you're being attacked by another empire. The first thing they're going to have to do if they want to claim your system is to destroy your starbase, all right? If you build these defensive platforms, it makes it a little bit more challenging for them to do that. And you can go back to your ship designer here, or you can select this button here to change what type of weapons you want on your defensive platform. But we're not going to focus too heavy on that in the early game, at least. Just know that that is there and will be important towards the end of the early game phase. Next up, we have our shipyard. And so that's that building, or that's that module that we built here. So the shipyard. If you want to build ships, you have to build shipyards on your starbase. And you can add more than one shipyard to a station to build more than one ship at a time. Now, when you click on shipyards, it's going to show the ships that are currently in orbit of your starbase. It'll show how many shipyards you have here. And if you have specific type of modules or buildings on your starbase that modifies your shipyards, you will see those modifications here. And so in this case, right now, we have no modifications to my station that will do things like maybe build or decrease build cost, increase build speed, or build time. Okay. And then over here on the right side, these are all the ships that I have available that I can build. The ones that are highlighted, I have the resources for those. And like I said before, you will need those alloys to build ships. The colony ships, however, require more resources. They're going to require food and consumer goods. And so that's kind of blackened out a little bit. That's just letting you know that I don't have the resources right now to build this type of ship. But if I wanted to build a Corvette, click on it. It's going to cost me 100 alloys, and so I don't have those alloys anymore. But I do have a Corvette that will be built in 60 days. I'm not going to build this first though. I usually go for science ships early on so that we can explore the galaxy a little bit faster. But yeah, that's going to be your shipyard and your starbase button there. Next up, we're going to look at the military fleet, and so this is just another way. If you want to just pull them up easier, you can click on that. But you know, the fleet manager, like we looked at before, that's another way to manage a lot of your fleets earlier on. But if you just want to click on it now, you can do that. And again, it just kind of does some of the same things that fleet manager button did earlier. Things like assigning leaders. You can see the specific type of ships that you have here and some more details about them. Okay. And so after that, and yeah, you guys can see it behind my noggin here, we have the category, the civilian ships. Now, these are going to be the ships that go around performing tasks like building mining deposits on planets that have resources you're not exploiting. Your science ships will go around and survey other systems. Let's start with our construction ship. So let me look around here. So right here, I see that there is an asteroid that has 3 minerals that we are not adding to my current economy right now. What I can do is I click on my construction ship. I can right click on that asteroid. If it was a planet, I would do the same thing. And this option will come up here. I can build a mining station. Now, mining stations will cost me right now 100 minerals, okay? If I build a mining station, I will send my construction ship there, and you can kind of see here, like this icon is letting me know that that is a mining station. I already have one built over planet Jupiter right now, and that's why that energy credit, that number is going to be green. That will happen to this asteroid 2 Pallas here. And so what I just did was I clicked on my construction ship again, right clicked on the asteroid. If it was a planet, you know, I could go over here and like I could build a research station that's like a mining station, but instead of exploiting resources, it exploits tech deposits. And so like this is a engineering research tech deposit that I could add to my empire. And you would do the same thing the same way you would build a mining district. Now, there are ways to automatically build construction sites like research stations and mining stations. If you hover over here, there's a few buttons that will let you do a number of different things. And so with your construction ships, you can build star bases, mining stations, like we said before, observation posts if you find primitive empires, which we'll talk about maybe in another video. And if you want to just automatically construct those bases, you can just click on that there. Now, for all of your ships' fleet stance, all of your civilian ships will have a fleet stance. If you have it set to evasive, let's say that they travel into a system that has hostile ships there, they will automatically try to evade those ships. If you click on it, it'll change their fleet stance to passive. That means that if there are hostile empires in a system that they're in, they won't try to flee. They'll just continue doing whatever task they have assigned to them. And then, but yeah, for the early game, I recommend keeping this on evasive for now, because your civilian ships, all of your ships really are going to be very important in the early game, and you want those to really last for as long as they can. Building megastructures is something that you won't even worry about until way later on in the game. You'll need technology to research different types of megastructures, but your construction ships, you'll be using those later on to build megastructures. And then you can see some of the details about the components of those if you click on the magnifying class there, and you can disband them same way with the other ships. And so after that, we've looked at most of the user interface. You guys can't really see it behind me, but there's some different type of map modes that you may see in the bottom right corner. You can look at those and just kind of select those to change the different types of map modes that you want. But I'm going to keep it on what it's set to what it's set to in the beginning of the game here. And so we're just going to go through a little bit more about some of the things that I like to look for in the early game, and just kind of getting past the user interface now. When I start a game, okay, the first thing that I look for, these are some priorities that I look for when I'm first starting a game. In this case, I am incredibly lucky because my home system right here, Earth, or Sol in this case, that's the home system. Earth is just kind of what this entire border is like representing. I see that there are these orange planets nearby. Now, we said earlier, these are potentially habitable worlds. Does not mean that they will be habitable to my species, but if I hover my cursor over them, I can see what type of planets are nearby. Now, when you start the game, you're going to see that like this shade of area is a little bit lighter than the darker areas. That just means that your planets, your ships, they'll have sensors, and that'll give you a little bit of intel about the systems that are near your home world, or near your ships in that case. And so as my science ships will start to like survey around the systems, this little bright shade will start to grow a little bit more. And so what I'll do first is I'll select my science ship, and the things that I prioritize early on in the game are potentially habitable worlds. I will send my science ship to go survey those worlds, because you cannot figure out how habitable the world is until you fully survey it. Another thing too with surveying is, like with your science ship, that's why they're so important early game, is you'll want to survey a system. When you do that, it shows you what resources are in that system, and it shows you again how habitable the planet is. And when you finish surveying a system, then you can send your construction ship to that system to build a star base and claim that system as your own. You cannot colonize, you cannot expand your borders unless you fully survey a system. And so I'm going to select my scientist again, and we're going to go ahead and select the option here to survey that system. And that's how you're going to get that bright little indicator there. That's letting me know now that my scientist is heading to this system next. Okay. Now for my construction ship, sometimes I'll leave them in this first system because I see that these resource icons are indicating that if they're white, it just means that, hey, you have these 3 resources in this system that you are not exploiting. And so earlier I showed you guys how to build mining stations and research stations within a system. There is a easier way to do it. If I click on my construction ship, I can right click on the sun in this system, and now I'll have both of these options here. And so that's an easier way to build those mining and research stations there. But for now, I'm just going to have it build that mining station and leave it be for now. My science ship is heading in that direction next. The Corvette I usually leave in my home system. But yeah, that's one of the first priorities, is looking for potentially habitable worlds. Another thing that I look for early game is choke points, okay? And so everything that you're seeing on the map right now, these suns and the lines that are going in between them, the lines are relays, hyper relays. That's how you travel, not hyper relays, but just regular relays. That is how your ships will travel from one system to the next, right? So with choke points, a choke point is when multiple systems lead to one system, right? Now I see one already. I see two actually. So this system right here is going to be a choke point because 1, 2, 3, we have 3 systems. All of their lanes are leading to that one system, right? So that is going to be a system that I want to find in the early game and expand my borders to. On top of that, the system has a habitable world in it, and so that's going to be a high priority system for me. Now, the reason that you want to secure these choke points, here's another example up here. I have 2 systems leading to one system right there. That is going to make that system a choke point. This system, however, is not going to be a choke point because look at all these different ways you can travel to that one system there. This would be another choke point. You have, I don't know what systems are in this area, but the only way let's say an empire was in this area, they would have to travel to this system and this system to reach my home system. And so you want to find those choke points, survey the system first, build a star base in it, and then make that starbase as strong as possible. That way, if any empire wants to attack you, let's say there was an empire in this system right here, they would have to travel from here to here. And if I made this a defensive choke point, they're going to have a tough time getting through that system. And so habitable planets, look for those first, choke points, and systems leading into other systems. And so think of it as like the opposite of a choke point. So let's say that I would not be able to, these would be the only systems that I would be able to expand to, right? And I see here that this one choke point is leading to a number of different systems. I'm going to want to know what is in these areas, okay? And so you want to make sure that you're not getting pinched into the galaxy, because for all we know, this dark shaded area of the galaxy, there could be a hostile empire that will not let me expand beyond their borders. And so that's why you want to have a good amount of science ships early on in the game, so that you can explore faster and prevent yourself from getting pinned into a corner of the galaxy and forcing you to play with a smaller empire. Let me see. I feel like we've covered a big chunk of everything here. And so, yeah, maybe in the next video that we make, I will look into some more of the mechanics of the early game. But guys, I'm Alpha Delete. Hopefully you enjoyed this content, and hopefully I was able to share with some new players some tips and tricks on things to look at in the early game and what to look forward to when you first start your game. And on top of that, one more thing I want to notice is that we have not even started our game yet. And so just get a good look at your empire before you start a game. And guys, hopefully you enjoyed the content. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you did like it, so that you can see more Stellaris content. I will be producing more playthroughs and things like that. And so hopefully you enjoyed, and until next time, I will see you all later.